left. Surekha will keep letting people in. Surekha, you got to start the recording.
Done, sir.
It's not showing that it's being recorded. Okay, fine. Okay. So it's 10 o'clock and we start bang on time as always. Welcome on board, everybody. And Abhilash Tomy needs absolutely no introduction. He's been a competitive sailor with us, and he sailed the Laser, the Enterprise. He's won a gold medal in the Seabird class, so an absolutely active sailor who's also done some crazy, absolutely amazing adventure sailing. He's done 2 trips, but we're going to talk only about the first one today. So introducing Commander and Honorary Dr. Abhilash Tomy, who's also got the Kirti Chakra and the Navsena medal. I wish we had a forum where all of us could clap for this, but he's definitely one of the most celebrated sailors we have on the on Indian shores. Naval officer, yachtsman, known for becoming the first Indian to complete a solo non-stop circumnavigation of the world under sail in 2013, 7 years ago. And his participation in the 2018 Golden Globe Award, everybody knows. So without much ado, I will hand over the mic to Abhilash and proceed into the background. Thanks very much for being with us. I think we have a good bunch of participants and hopefully more will come. Thanks, Abhilash, for being.
Thanks to him. It was not the Golden Globe Awards that I took part in, it was the Golden Globe race. Sorry. Yeah, so today I'll be talking about how I ended up doing a non-stop circumnavigation. And this week on Thursday, we had Captain Dilip Donde speak to us about Sagar Parikrama 1. That's basically how I got into, majorly into ocean sailing. I'd done a little bit of ocean sailing before that, but it was through the efforts of the Navy and Sagar Parikrama 1 that I really started doing some proper long distance ocean sailing. Now, like, you know, almost everybody in India, I started off with dinghies. I was sailing the Enterprise when I was a cadet in the Naval Academy. I took part in Navy championships and all that. And after that, the Navy put me through a program to train on the lasers. And I think in about 7 or 8 months, I finished 4th in a nationals in Chennai. But soon after that, dinghy sailing took a backseat, and I got into ocean sailing. And I really got into ocean sailing in a big way, because the first big boat that I ever sailed was the Ericsson 1, which had taken part in the Volvo Ocean Race of 2005, 2006. Now, this boat, Ericsson 1, was in Cochin on a hospitality trip, funded by Ericsson, of course. And the Yachting Association of India deputed me to Cochin to manage this boat. I did whatever I could, and at the end of it, I was offered a trip on this boat from Cochin to Bombay as crew, and that's the first long ocean sailing passage that I did. Now, soon after this, this was January 2008. Soon after this, we came to know that Volvo Ocean Race is coming to India, and it would be stopping over in Cochin. Now, Volvo, of course, is one of the 4 biggest events in the sport of sailing, at least at that time, in the world. And its coming to Cochin was a big deal, because Cochin till then had not even, the joke went like that, that Cochin till then had not even hosted a cycling rally event, and now we were hosting the Volvo Ocean Race. The boats were supposed to arrive in December 2008, but I was deputed there again by the Yachting Association of India as the Yacht Services Manager to manage the entire technical area. Now, this was a 6-month stint for me, and it was a very difficult time because I lost about 10 kilos of weight just doing this one event. So everything from the marina to the technical area to looking after their toilets, to the stability of the electricity, to security of the area, to the cranes lifting out the boats, arranging stuff, everything, every job in that huge area, the technical area was with me. Now this obviously gave me a lot of experience, and at the end of this project, I was given a commendation by the Chief of Naval Staff, and immediately after that, the boats left in December 2008. Immediately after that, I was sent to to Oman, to Salalah, to sail with Professor Radhakrishnan. Now, Professor Radhakrishnan was the son of Sir C.V. Raman, renowned scientist. He had built a boat in India. It was a 18-meter catamaran, or was it 16 meters? It was a 16-meter catamaran built in India, and he was planning to sail around the world with this boat. He wanted a crew, and the Navy sent me to sail with him. I was supposed to embark at Salalah and sail with him all the way up to Ashkelon Marina in Israel. We started off, but we had quite a few defects on the boat. We had to stop in Mukalla in Yemen. That's right at the border of Yemen and Oman. And after 5 days of halt, we made some repairs good, and then we headed to Aden. But Aden, I had to call off my voyage, and I headed back to India. Now, when I came back to India, I had to route via the naval headquarters because I had to debrief them on the expedition. And they asked me if I wanted to be part of a solo circumnavigation project. I said, of course, yes. I really didn't want to pass up this opportunity because I had been dreaming of something like this since 1999. That project was Sagar Parikrama 1. Captain Dilip Donde, then commander, was planning to go around the world single-handed with 4 stops. And the Navy was looking for somebody to support him, shore support for this expedition. By this time, I had done shore support for the Volvo boats. I'd had a few hundred miles of sailing under my belt, dinghy sailing experience, and I think that's why the Navy thought I would be probably the best person to help Captain Donde with his expedition. And soon enough, I found myself in Cochin, working on, in Goa, where the Made was based. I soon found myself in Goa, working on the Made. Now, I knew how to get people to work on a boat, but I really had not much experience working on a boat myself. But one thing that I learned from Professor Radhakrishnan was that he always maintained a diary, and he always, kept writing down every small job that needed to be done on a boat. That's probably one good habit that I picked up from him. And I started keeping a diary, and I started listing out all the small and big jobs that need to be done on the Made. And every day I would, keep ticking off some job or the other. That's how I started working on this boat. Of course, another thing that I was very well trained to do was how to broom and mop and keep stuff clean. I used to do that almost every other day. Captain Donde was at that time preparing to undertake a circumnavigation by sea. Circumnavigation by sea, if you look at the term, loosely means sailing around the world. There are a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of people who have sailed around the world through the canals, through sticking to the equatorial belt and all that. But internationally, if you want to be an acknowledged circumnavigator, you need to follow a certain route. And that certain route, that route has certain conditions. You need to start and finish in the same port. You need to a distance which is at least equal to the length of the equator, which is 29,600 nautical miles or 40,000 kilometers. You need to cross the equator twice. So anybody who starts from the southern hemisphere, like we had that girl from Australia who did a non-stop circumnavigation. If you start from the southern hemisphere, you need to head north, some point in your voyage, cross the equator, once in the northbound passage and once in the southbound passage. Obviously, you cannot take any canals. So the Suez and Panama canals are ruled out because that also means that you're motoring. You have to sail south of the three Great Capes, which is Cape Lewin in Australia, Cape Horn in South America, and Cape of Good Hope in South Africa. And you need to cross all the longitudes in the same direction. Now, this thing of rounding three Great Capes, I'll tell you an incident. There was a Chinese guy who was circumnavigating, doing a non-stop circumnavigation while I was doing my circumnavigation, and he ticked all the boxes except sailing south of Cape Lewin. He rounded Cape of Good Hope and he headed to China, Qingdao. And just because of that, Robin refused to put him in his list of circumnavigators. Now, this is what a route would roughly look like. If you start from India, head down south, turn left, around Australia, cross the Pacific, round Cape Horn, cross the Atlantic, round Cape of Good Hope, and head back to India. The only choice you have is whether you turn left or right. Now, if you head eastward, everything is with you. The winds and waves are with you. If you head westward, which is also called the wrong way circumnavigation, you've got wind and waves against you. Very few people have done it westwards. Much more have done it eastwards. Now, I sailed with Captain Donde during his preparatory voyage. We sailed to Mauritius and to Colombo. And after that, he did his non-stop circumnavigation. He did his circumnavigation with 4 stops. I flew down to Australia, New Zealand, Falklands, and Cape Town to help him prepare the boat and all that. It was in New Zealand that I got a message from Admiral Manohar Rawati, who was the godfather of the project, who was the person who had caused this project to happen. He asked me if I wanted to do a non-stop once Captain Donde finished his circumnavigation. And before he could finish his sentence, I said yes. So, I confided this with Captain Donde, who was very thrilled to hear about this. It was in Cape Town, when he stopped in Cape Town, that on his mother's birthday, we were sitting in a sushi joint, and on the back of a paper napkin, we made a plan to do a non-stop circumnavigation, how to go about training, how to go about preparing the boat and doing this entire trip around the world. Captain Donde reached Bombay, received by the President of India and all that. And after that, he asked me to drop the boat in Goa. He said, since you're planning to do a non-stop circumnavigation, why don't you, try a hand at just sailing the boat from Bombay to Goa, 200 miles. He gave me a crew of 4, 3 sailors of the Navy and Commander Mahesh. Commander Mahesh was senior to me, but I was made the skipper because apparently I knew a lot about the boat. We cast off monsoons, and the moment we crossed the Fairway Buoy, I started vomiting. And for the next 2 days, it was Commander Mahesh and the sailors who sailed the boat. And I emerged only when we were at the entrance of Mandavi River. Once alongside, I believe Commander Mahesh had a word with Captain Donde, and he asked, do you really think that Tomy is the right person to do a circumnavigation? Well, that's one incident I really cannot forget. I was extremely, extremely seasick when I started doing this. Anyway, we put our plan in place. The Navy gave us approval to sail from take part in the Cape to Rio race. So we set off with a crew of 4 people, sailed from Goa to Cape Town. There were 3 officers and 1 sailor from the Navy, Pankaj. At Cape Town, we prepared the boat. We had about 10-15 days to prepare the boat. Took part in the race across the Atlantic, landed in Rio. At Rio, Captain Donde handed over the boat to me, and with another guy, Lieutenant Commander Gautam Khajuria, we made a crossing of the Atlantic. Now, I was just about 29 or 30 years old at this age, 2 people crossing the Atlantic. We straight away ran into a storm. In fact, the entire fleet who had taken part in the race ran into a storm. It was not a very nice storm to be. One boat was dismasted. There's another boat which sank and people had to be rescued. Another boat, the rudder fell off. Generally, it was, mayhem all over. But this boat, which was built in India, really did pretty well. We had a few problems. The shaft was leaking. We tore a mainsail. It took almost 8 hours to change that mainsail. at the end of which the two of us were so exhausted, I can't tell you. But yes, we put on a new sail, but that sail also tore, and we had to stitch it without removing it. We reached Cape Town, and from Cape Town, I sailed to Goa all the way alone. It took me 33 days, and this was the first solo trip I was doing. This is about 4,500 miles or so. The moment I started the voyage, things were very peaceful and calm, but as soon as we moved out of the loo of the 12 apostles, we were caught in a very bad easterly breeze. It was about 30 knots, and I lost a baton. My generator started sparking. The battery started sparking because of low insulation. The galley started spewing out flames all over the place. My wind-driven autopilot, its welding broke, and most importantly, my electronic autopilot was not holding because it was not taking feed from the wind indicator. I had a choice whether I, head back to Cape Town and make good piece repairs or continue sailing to Goa. But I decided to, stick to my plan and head towards Goa. So I was, the first 4 or 5 days were really, really bad because it was a very bad storm, and I had about 25-30 knot winds, and the autopilot was really not working. So I was perched right next to the navigation table, managing the autopilot on course mode, which means that every 5-10 minutes you're pressing buttons to alter the course of the boat. A couple of days later, I tore a sail, the Genoa, and it took me a lot of effort to get that sail off. Anyway, we reached Goa, and from there, I took the boat to Bombay in December for the President's Fleet Review. In 2012 March, we did a trip to Malaysia and Thailand to train some sailors of the Navy. And when I was back, the Navy told me to get ready for a non-stop circumnavigation. That was how Sagar Parikrama 2 began. Now, by the time this expedition began, I had about 27,000 miles of sailing experience, which is 5,000 miles more than what I was supposed to do in the non-stop circumnavigation. I had intimate knowledge of the boat. I knew its weaknesses and strengths. And thanks to help from the Navy, I was able to set up the boat exactly the way I wanted. I added some fuel tanks. I fit a wind generator, put some solar panels, did some modifications inside, made some storage spaces, etc. Changed any item that I thought was defective or suspect. And in all this, the Navy really held my hand and helped me. Now, in addition to all this, I did some training in Navy schools, which included a course on GMDSS, Global Maritime Distress, and all that, search and rescue, navigation, a little bit of media editing, survival training, and long and endless list. And then I had to get food which could last for at least 8-9 months. My brother sent 150 packets of freeze-dried food from New Zealand. They look very delicious on the cover, but if you eat it, trust me, it just tastes exactly like a vomit. It's very difficult to push it down in the throat. The Defense Food Research Laboratories gave me about 100 packets of pre-cooked meals, which was very delicious. And Captain Donde's mother arranged all these food packets into different boxes so that for any given month, all I had to do was open a box and I could find all that I needed in that particular box. Water had 3 sources. I had about 600 liters of water in tanks, 300 liters of water in bottles, and an RO plant that could convert CO2 to fresh water. I did a course in medicine, a 1-day course in medicine, and the second day I packed all the medicines that I needed to take with me. Like that, packed all the spares that I needed. And spares, as in, you really need to have a very exhaustive list of spares, because once you start, one condition of this expedition is that you cannot take any help. So you need a pen en route, because your pens are not working, and you take a pen from somebody. It's not a non-stop anymore. Sorry, it's not an unassisted circumnavigation anymore. So you have to really go down to the last detail and be really, really well prepared as far as spares are concerned. And if you look at the list, you will find stuff to repair aluminum with. What if the mast cracked and you had to repair that? stuff for maintaining the engine, all your oils and lubricants and filters and relays and stuff like that, all your engine belts. Same goes for the generator. You know, fuses for almost every kind of fuse for all the electronics in the boat. Spares for the satellite communication system, spares for the autopilot computers, stuff for doing carpentry work, fiberglass work, emergency repairs. It was really an endless list, and I think I was really well prepared at that time. This is just a day before the cast off. Packed all the food, medicine, water, everything that I needed to survive for almost 200 days at sea. And sensing the importance of the occasion, Lord Varuna himself came down to Bombay to give me his blessings personally. Now that day when I cast off, I straight away headed to a cyclone called Neelam. And this had killed a lot of people in the East Coast, but I really didn't have a choice. In fact, even if I had a choice, I would have continued because I suspected that if I said that I wanted to delay the start of the expedition, there was a good chance that somebody might just tell me, why go? Just stay back, don't go at all. I cast off, and thanks to the cyclone, I had a nice breeze. It was about 20 to 25 knots. We were like really speeding up down the coast of India. But close to Malabar coast, ran out of winds, and it was like, you don't have any at all. You have to take down all the sails, because unlike a dinghy where you leave the sails on, there's no problem. But in a big boat, sails tend to flap and they tear. So you have to take down all the sails when it doesn't catch, when there is no pressure on the sails. And then you get a little bit of wind, you put up as much sail as you can. In a dinghy, it would be simple probably, but in a boat like this, it's not easy. You have about 35 degrees temperature. This that I'm putting up is almost 3,500 square feet. The mainsail is roughly 1,000 square feet and 100 kilos in weight. The height of the mast is 25 meters, which is almost the height of a 7-story building. Now imagine carrying a 100-kilo sail all the way up a 7-story building. No electric winches, you use muscle power. And once you reach on top, your boat sails nicely for half an hour. And then you realize that the wind has dropped, the sails are flapping again. And you rush and you drop the sails and then you wait for the next breeze. And when the next breeze comes, you put all the sails up and keep doing that, maybe 5-6 times a day. I got some breeze close to Sri Lanka, and I wanted to head east first and then cross the equator. That's what I did. Cross the equator on 16th of November, headed south, and I ran into the trade winds. Now, when you talk about beating in Hi. The connection dropped, is it? Okay. Where should I start it from? No, I know that, but which slide? This one? Okay. Sorry, the connection dropped, but I think it's fine now. So I crossed the equator, headed south, and I was heading into the trade wind. So you're beating up the trade winds now. When you sail a dinghy, a beat is 20 minutes. And even if it's, it can't be as bad as this. 25 to 30 knots, 2 to 3 meter high waves. And the boat really takes a pounding. Everything inside the boat is not in its place. Nothing stays in its place. You sleep on one side of the bed, you will wake up on the other side. You try to work on the laptop, definitely it will fly off and fall on the floorboard. You try to boil you try to boil a kettle of water, it will fly and fall on your face. In fact, if you, take a crap in the pot, there's a good chance that also might just fly out of the pot and come This beating continued for almost a week, and I continued heading south because I know that when you cross the Tropic of Capricorn, the weather system changes and you get the westerlies. That's the highway that you're supposed to catch. Now, up to the Tropic of Capricorn, you got tropical weather, but the moment you cross it, you got the extratropical weather, which is primarily cold fronts. And cold fronts are these, masses of cold air trying to overtake warm air. And at the junction where that overtaking happens, there's a lot of winds and there's a lot of low pressure and there's a lot of rain and stuff like that. And it can really get windy. On an average, these systems have about 35, 40 knots wind inside them. Can go up to 70 knots. In winters, winds inside of these systems can go up to 100, 110 knots. And, unlike a cyclone in India, which comes, say, once or twice a year, in the southern hemisphere, these cold fronts, you'll get at least 2 a week. So you're looking at 2 sets of cyclone kind of speed winds every week. Because of the fact that in the southern hemisphere there is no landmass, these winds and waves are not obstructed, and they don't kind of slow down. They continue to go round and round and pick up in intensity. The first of these systems hit when I was about around Leuven, had about 40 knot winds and about 8-meter high waves. That's what the prediction said. But you also should know that when the prediction says that the wind speeds are going to be 40 knots, you add 50% for gust factor. So you're looking at 60 knot winds. And when they say that wave height is going to be 8 meters, that is the height of the average wave. The maximum height is straight away twice of that. So you're looking at 16-meter high waves and about 60 knot winds. And this is what the sea looked like. Total mayhem. Started at night. And this storm broke the pad-eye, which is supposed to, the backstay was attached to this pad-eye. And the strain, I think, was so much that it broke a huge steel fitting. Now, I quickly shifted the entire arrangement to a standby pad-eye, but I decided that I'm going to, go a bit slow. I'm not going to be in racing mode anymore. So as we crossed the Great Australian Bight, I started spending more time reading weather updates, and I started positioning my boat 200 miles, 100 miles to the left and right of the worst of these systems and navigate safely. I'm sorry. On the 25th of December, a new system hit me that had about I think 30 knot winds and standard 4 to 5 meter high waves. But this system, which started on the 25th of December, continued to build in intensity unless it was a New Year's Eve. And on New Year's Eve, this is what that storm looked like. 31st of December 2012, I had winds averaging more than 50 knots, continuously more than 50 knots throughout the day. And that's how I went into the 1st of January. But as soon as I reached the 1st of January at 6 in the morning, I crossed the international date line. I had to go back into the 31st of December 2012 again. And like that, I think I became the first Indian to welcome 2013. And I also became the last Indian to bid farewell to 2012. From there, I was now stepping into the Pacific. And let me tell you, the Pacific is so huge that if you put all the landmass of the Earth into the Pacific, you'll still have water left around you. Now, it was while we were crossing the Pacific that a rope on top of the mast parted and I had to climb up. Now, this was exactly in between a cold front. Now, in a cold front, you have, about 30, 40 knots blowing from the northwest, and then it shifts to the southwest and comes with the same intensity, 35 to 40 knots. In between, you get 2 to 3 hours of calm, but the swells are still huge. And that's the only time I had to fix this problem. And that's how, I ended up climbing. Nil winds, almost 5 knot winds, but pretty bad swells. Fixed that thing, came down, and continued sailing eastward. And in the crossing of the Pacific, I went as far down south as 58.5 degrees south. And then I was to round Cape Horn, which we call the Everest of the oceans. You know, there are two distinct privileges that a person has when you're around Cape Horn. One is that you're allowed to wear a gold earring on the ear that you're wearing when you, gold ring on the ear that faced Cape Horn when you rounded it. And also you're allowed to keep 1 foot on the dining table. I rounded Cape Horn on 26th of January 2013, Republic Day, hoisted the tricolor. And that's the first time I made phone calls from the boat. Called up my parents because it was their wedding anniversary. Called up Admiral Auti, Captain Donde, and Ratnakar Dandekar, who built the boat. Sorry. And I also managed to get a glimpse of Cape Horn. A very foggy day. And that's what Cape Horn looked like. Just almost 60 knots of winds. The sea was like really, really terrible. But once that storm subsided, a Hercules took off from Falkland Islands. Again, courtesy Indian Navy, they requested the Royal Air Force to take my pictures. They came, said hello, and sent pictures of the boat back to me. And this is what we look like. This is after almost 100 days and 10,000 miles at sea. The crossing of the Atlantic was without any incident. It was very smooth because I was now, climbing up latitudes. Things was getting warmer. I was shedding layers of clothes. In fact, I even managed to take bath in seawater after 50 days. I was chased by a whale in the South Atlantic. That was one scary moment. And next up was rounding of Cape of Good Hope. Cape of Good Hope is known as the it's known as the graveyard of ships because a lot of ships have, sunk there. And that happens because of the Abhilash currents, which flows westward, and strong westerly breeze that blows from the west. And when they meet south of Cape of Good Hope, in the Abhilash banks, waves which are as high as 100 feet. And they have the windward slope is really gradual, gentle, but the leeward slope is a vertical drop because the currents are undercutting the earth. And if your boat is feet, your ship will sink. That's why this place is called the graveyard of ships. As you can see, I stayed really, really south, almost 40 degrees south or something. And I didn't want to get into that terrible waves. I stayed south, continued heading east, crossed Cape of Good Hope on 19th of February 2013, was hit by another nasty storm. This time it wasn't 50 or 60 knots, I had about 70 knots. And this storm, and it really took me by surprise. It did some damage and it ripped off the entire Genoa. I was not even using it. I had furled it, but it opened that furled Genoa and ripped it off completely. And there was another problem to deal with. At this time, I got news that a cyclone over Madagascar, expected about 70 knots average, 120 knots of max wind speeds, easily 11 meter waves, looking at 20 meters. Max waves. So I kept myself at 42 south, continued heading towards Australia. Prayed I held that, this doesn't join with a cold front and become an extratropical cyclone, and head my way. Luckily, this, it stayed more or less over Madagascar and did whatever damage it had to do over Madagascar, but it didn't head my way. I turned north, and now I needed to take care of this torn sail. Usually you open a halyard, the sail is supposed to drop, but in this case it was so badly torn and entangled that the sail wouldn't come off. So I had to cut it. To cut it, I had to climb the mast again. So I took a pair of scissors and I kept climbing the mast whenever I got time. I kept climbing, let's say, 1 meter a day, another meter the next day. And I climbed almost 13 times. And in the end, I was able to get rid of the entire sail. Now, I crossed Mauritius on Mauritius National Day. And after that, I met the first ship since I rounded Cape Horn. And this ship had a Chinese watchkeeper who wanted to know where I was headed. I said, Bombay. So he asked me, what's your departure port? I said, Bombay. He said, if you're headed to Bombay, what's your departure port? I said, Bombay. He said, if your departure is Bombay, what's your destination? I said, Bombay again. And trust me, was really confused. And I told him about this non-stop circumnavigation I was doing. And well, he told me that he had heard about me because, there was another Chinese gentleman who was circumnavigating, doing a non-stop circumnavigation at that time. And he had spoken about me in his Twitter accounts and all that. North of Mauritius, I put up a new sail. And now we were, back to 100% health. But that day I discovered that a lot of diesel had leaked into the diesel tanks. And this had, the problem was that this went into my water tanks. And all the water that I had was contaminated. And all the fresh water that I was having in bottles, they also were contaminated. The RO plant stopped working a long time back. Finally, I mustered all the water bottles that I could find to drink. I thought was safe for drinking, and I realized I was left with only about 15 liters or something. So next 15 days, I survived on 15 liters of water. I crossed the equator for the second time on 20th of March, which was the day of March equinox. And then finally, I sighted Bombay for the first time on 31st of March 2013. So that's it. I came back, returned on Easter, but the moment I came back, there was a very, very, very small reception held. Admiral Shekhar Sinha had seen me off almost 150 days ago, met me at the naval dockyard, shook hands with me, and he said, congratulations, you've made history out of geography today. Well, that's it. That's how the name of an Indian was added to a list that was started in 1969 by Sir Robin Knox Johnson himself. That was 31st of March, Easter Sunday. I thought I'd resurrected myself, but next day I had to go and get paperwork done, which was I had to get my passport stamped. Now, before I started this expedition, when I went to Yellowgate police station to have my passport stamped, those guys refused to do it because they just couldn't understand how somebody could leave India and come back without, stopping anywhere. They kept asking me, "Kidhar ja raha hai?" And I told them, "Listen, I don't have a destination. I'll come back here only. I'm not going abroad, but I need a stamp." And they just refused to do it. Finally, Captain Donde had to come, and he spoke to them in Marathi, and they were kind of convinced, and they stamped me out, and I could see that look on their face, like dekhte hain kya karne ja raha hai karke. 5 months later, when I came back, I was like 20 kilos lighter, long hair, much darker, looked like a ghost. And when I asked him to stamp me in, that guy thought he was really looking at a ghost, and he stamped my passport in upside down. You can see 31st March is stamped upside down. Somebody gifted me a gold earring, which I have the privilege and the permission to wear in my left ear. And well, on 6th April, I was in for a very big surprise. I was told to take the boat and leave Bombay Harbor early in the morning at 3. I was told by the Navy, nobody should see you. I left at 3 in the morning. I was told to come back at 3 in the evening. Came back, and I had even Major A.K. Singh follow me on Trishna when I sailed in. When I sailed in and put the boat alongside at the gateway, we had none other than the President of India standing there to receive me. This was probably the only time the President of India has, received anybody outside of Rashtrapati Bhavan, because otherwise it's always, all receptions are held in Rashtrapati Bhavan. I think this was the biggest honor that this expedition that the Navy started could get. Yes, and well, funny things started happening after that. Just because the president received me, a lot of people realized that something's happened, and they read about me because people were publishing this story everywhere, and they couldn't believe that somebody could go around the world alone without stopping. And they would ask me very often, "Solo tune akele kiya kya?" Or were there people with me? I really got sick of giving those answers. But what Tinkle finally did is they put me on their front page with all their characters, implying that I was really not alone in this expedition. People also asked if I met mermaids, and well, I told them mermaids don't exist, but Amul put this ad up with the Amul girl dressed up as a mermaid trying to seduce me with butter toast. But I think I picked up the butter toast and I was on my way. She said, "Shabash, Abhilasha puri hui." But as a side note, she also said the best is yet to come. Now, I told you about the privilege of dining with 1 feet on the dining table. We were invited, Captain Dhoni and I were invited to the Royal Bombay Yacht Club, and we were made to pose for a picture with both feet on the dining table, one for Cape Horn and one for Cape of Good Hope. That's it. I got a lot of awards and recognitions and all for this expedition, but the real changes that happened inside of you, I could tell only once I was able to compare myself with people who had not changed in those 5 to 6 months.
In 2011, Commander Dhonde handed over the Madai to me with 2 simple words in standard Navy issue terms: all yours. From that day, Madai was my responsibility, and I was the Madai's in the long voyage across the longitudes. I knew the Madai would be an island by herself in the huge portions, so I took only what I needed, and each item had a purpose. Clearly, less is more. Thus began our journey, with just the winds, waves, and the sun to guide us. The sun always showed up and showered warmth. The winds tested us, loved us, and egged us on. The waves, sometimes angry, playful, and at times calming. It was the most adventurous of days. It was the most perilous of days. It was the most tumultuous of nights. It was the most tranquil of nights. It was the busiest of times. It was the slowest of times. With lots of friends on the way and everyday stories to lend meaning to life. They knocked us, they loved us, they respected us, they guided us. They shared our secrets and indulged in us with no expectations in return, with 2 simple words: all yours. 151 days and 23,000 nautical miles across longitudes and latitudes. We bring back no trophies, as we did not go on a conquest, but we bring back a lesson that you don't need a lot to live your life and be happy. Less is more. The earth provides enough to satisfy every man's need, but not his greed. Let's adopt less is more and hand over a clean and bountiful earth to our inheritors with two simple words: all yours.
Well, that's it. That was the story of Sagar Parikrama. Now, yeah, thing is, at the reception during the speech, everybody spoke. The President spoke, Navy Chief spoke, Admiral Lavki spoke, and I was made to speak. After remaining silent for 5 months, they asked me to speak. I spoke something, and when I had to end the speech, I didn't know what to say, so I just blurted this out.
Before I end, all I want to ask is, sir, can I go for one more round, please?
I turned to the President.
Thank you.
I turned to the President and I asked him, sir, can I go for one more round, please? And everybody was laughing. But the thing is, I got an opportunity in 2018, and that was the Golden Globe race of 2018. That's another story for another time. But for now, this is all I have. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. I mean,
Thanks, Rohit.
totally inspiring. And, I'll ask some of the audience questions before I get to mine. Just a moment. 1 minute. I think you... Can we stop sharing the screen, please? Just a minute.
Done?
Okay, so here we are. And let me race off the questions. I think question from Rohit Behel, and what kind of footwear do you wear during circumnavigation? What kind of sunblock, etc. So footwear and sunblock. Rohit Behel.
Footwear, initially when I started sailing, I used to be barefoot, and you can sail barefoot in warm waters. But the thing is that you can enjoy your feet, you can enjoy your toes on the blocks and cleats and all the tech fittings. So it's not a good idea to be barefoot on a boat for any reason. Crocs in our weather is really, really good. Otherwise, you can go for any slip-on boat shoes, and they need to be boat shoes, not sneakers or something. Boat shoes generally don't have glue, or if they have glue that resists water. Sneakers, if you wear them, to sea, the sole comes off. Then they also need to drain. So if water goes into your feet, into your shoes, it needs to drain quickly. So you need that sort of footwear in warm weather. But as the weather grows colder, you can go for Southern Ocean boots, and you can either go for leather or something with gaiter on top, or thick soles and all that. But whatever it is, make sure that for summers you need the sole has to be flat and slightly wide, so that you find your balance quickly. For Southern Ocean, you need to, if you're trying out boots, you need to first wear woolen socks and then try your boots on. And it's really not a good idea to slip on your feet without socks on. It's very difficult to get your feet into a boot without socks. And once you wear the boots, make sure your the trousers that you're wearing, the salopettes, they go above over the boat. Don't bunch it inside the boat. You want all water to drain out and not go inside your boat. What is the second question?
The second question is, there were two more from Himanshu Yadav and Arvind Shah. What health issues did you face and your sleeping schedule?
Well, I really didn't have any health issues, none at all. Not in the first circumnavigation, except that in the Southern Ocean, it becomes, I urinate outside the boat. That's the easiest way to do it. But when there is a storm and it's very cold, you're in 3 or 4 layers of clothing, it's difficult to go out and urinate. You go out, you have to go to the leeward. The leeward side, the boat is really badly heeled to like 20, 30 degrees like that. You go to one corner, you hang on a shroud or something, and then you start unzipping your top layer, bottom layer, then the mid layer, and then you have to take off more layers, and then you try to urinate. It's very cold, it's tough, and the wind tries to blow everything back on your face. So there was this day I remember I tried, putting it off, and then I had some sort of burning sensation in my urinary tract the next day. And I quickly understood that it was because of the fact that I was putting off urinating. Had a lot of water the next day to get rid of whatever problem was there, and it never came back. And later on, my mother gave me an advice. She told me that carry a bottle with you so that you can do it even inside the boat, and that's what I followed for the second race. Other than that, a lot of weight loss. I lose about 1 kilo on an average every 3 days for the first 30 days. So I'm roughly 10 kilos lighter in 1 month. After that, the weight loss slows down. But strength loss mostly happens in the lower body. Your legs are not doing too much work. Your upper body becomes much stronger, but your lower body is really, really weak. Other than these, no health issues. Yeah, and I remember the question about sunblocks. I really don't like sunblocks. I don't like putting cream on my face because it traps moisture. It traps sweat, and that can lead to fungal infection or some sort of itching and all that. What I generally follow is I try to cover my entire body with clothing. So I wear something equivalent of a rash vest, which covers all the way up to the wrist. There's always a hat on. The eyes need to be protected with some really good UV resistant goggles. And maybe wear something on your face. I prefer clothes than sunblock.
What, according to you, are the top qualities of a circumnavigator that are essential solo?
A lot of patience, and the ability to put in effort into preparing. I think these two are extremely important. At sea, there are long stretches of time when you wonder why you're doing this, when things are not going your way, and you can't do much either. I mean, if there's no wind, there's no wind. You can't use an engine. You just can't use an engine. Or if there's a storm and you've taken all your reefs, and there's only so much you can do. To tide over it, you need to be, let's say, patient.
How would you compare the technology that was available to you compared to the technology that was available to the people who did it, the first few who did it, let's say the first 10, 15? And yeah, that's the question.
All right, see, when Robin did his circumnavigation in 1969, he took 312 days. Is the connection okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when Robin did his circumnavigation in 1968-69, he took 312 days. By his admission, the most sophisticated piece of equipment that he had on the boat was a barometer. He didn't have anything more complex than that, a barometer and a sextant. And that's it. If you wanted to speak to someone at home, he had to use HF, call into Portishead radio, ask them to patch it through telephone to his, whomever he wanted to talk, probably his reporter or his family and all that. So communications was tough. The quality of materials available for building a boat was tough. Design had not really progressed to the levels that we've progressed. So in 1969, it took him 312 days to do a non-stop circumnavigation. And right now, I think the fastest non-stop circumnavigation stands at 45 days or so. And this sort of, chopping off of time is because of the technological advancements, primarily in the material that is used for constructing boats. We got carbon fiber now. Everything is carbon fiber, really very light stuff. You can build huge, strong and light masts with carbon fiber, much lighter sails. The other thing is communication. We got much better communication facilities now, much better weather observation and prediction facilities. Press a button, you get weather for the next 16 days. I think these are the two huge advancements that have happened as far as technology is concerned. Obviously, there's been a lot of improvements in boat design. Now, speaking specifically about me, I've done the Golden Globe race, which was circumnavigating with 1969 technology and doing a non-stop circumnavigation with current day technology. In my non-stop circumnavigation, navigation, I never had to take out a GPS or a sextant or even a compass. I just had to look at a screen. I knew where I was. I knew in how many days I would reach where, what speed I was doing. I had weather for the next 15 days. I could, really avoid patch systems. I could plan for swell. I could plan for wind. I could plan for temperature. I could plan for rain also. In fact, when I ran out of water, I planned my route to get some precipitation, to get some water out of rains. So yes, there's been a lot of changes that's happened.
Thanks. What were the few things that you learned? You're in complete isolation. So what are the few things you think you learned out of introspection about yourself?
One big thing that I learned is that, when we're with people, we live in a make-believe world. We are taught things right from childhood, what's right, what's wrong, and stuff like that. But when you're alone, all these things totally disappear. And things that get value out of the fact that everybody believes in it. For example, money derives its value from the fact that everybody together believe in its value, so it gets some value. These things just disappear. So it's a lot of unlearning that happens. It's a lot of, going back to a kind of original state of mind, which is not burdened by guilt or anxiety or, thinking what somebody else is thinking about you right now, or how to deal with people. There's no guilt. It's a really nice life out there alone.
So the less the people, the better the life. And I think this whole COVID-19 thing has taught us that money experiences are more important than money. And I think you face the same experience. Of course, you would do it all over again. So that question could be eliminated. What advice would you give to the next guy who wants to do it? Or anybody?
Well, you should focus on preparing. A lot of people, still believe that I had a boat and one fine day I cast off and went sailing. And 5 months later, I was back in Bombay and I'd finished a non-stop circumnavigation. And then it was all about being acknowledged and, getting media publicity and stuff like that. That's not how it is. That's just the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of effort that goes into this. It's tremendous amount of effort. It's many hours of effort into this. And at sea, it's just you. You can't blame somebody else. Even if you want to blame somebody else, fine, but you are the person who's going to suffer for it. So you better be prepared. You better know your boat. You better, sort out all the weak points. You do your training voyages properly. You get your food and ration, everything in place yourself. It's all about preparation.
Can you say a few words about Ratnakar, Dandekar and Aquarius and the kind of role they played in it?
Well, you would have heard the story from Captain Dilip Donde, yes, on Thursday. When the Navy decided to do a non-stop circumnavigation, they also decided to look inwards for a boat builder, as in they didn't want to buy a boat and do a circumnavigation. It had to be a completely Indian project. A tender was floated, there were bidders, and Ratnakar was, I think, the lowest bidder. Now, till then, Ratnakar was building very small boats. He did not have any experience with sailboats, definitely. He was building motorboats and all. And there's an anecdote where, finally Captain Donde takes Ratnakar to a sailboat and shows him, this is what a sailboat looks like. This is, a mast, and this is a boom, stuff like that. But from that point, if an individual has to progress to the extent of building a boat that's done a circumnavigation within a year of its construction, I think it speaks very, very highly of how willing he is to learn, how dedicated, how honest he is. And not just one circumnavigation, that boat did almost 100,000 miles within 5 years, and most of it through the Southern Ocean. So that boat was really built with a lot of honesty. The hull is super strong. All the equipment is over-spec'd, and I think the credit for that goes to the builder. In fact, I'll give you 2 examples. We wanted to change a block in Rio, and we went to a lot of Chancery. We couldn't find that block, and everybody thought that we had come on a 120-foot boat because they said that those blocks are put on 120-foot boats, not on 56-footer boats. In South Africa, we needed to drill a hole in the hull to fit an exhaust system for the generator. And, a yard guy came from one of the yards there, and he said, it's just a 10-minute job. We'll use a hole saw cutter, drill a hole, and then tap it. The hole will follow, and we'll fix the outlet. He was at it for, I think, 2.5 hours. He broke 3 hole saw cutters, but he couldn't still drill a hole in the hull. That's how strong the hull was made. So I guess a lot of kudos to the boat builder for that.
Fantastic. Could you put in a few words about the role of Admiral Avati and, of course, Robin Knox Johnson? But I would think Admiral Avati first.
Admiral Avati was, it's just my good fortune that I came in his radar. I think it was 1945 when he came across a copy of Joshua Slocum's book on his circumnavigation. And Admiral Avati saw that book in the UK somewhere, walking on some street. And he came back to India, and since 1945, he nurtured this dream that some Indian had to sail around the world. And if you sit with him and listen to his stories, you cannot be not impressed. He once shifted, as CNC shifted his flag to a sailboat. And he got a terse message from the naval headquarters that this is something that's never been done before. And he said, there's always a first time. The admiral's flag on a sailboat and not on a big destroyer or something. Even after retiring, he wrote to a lot of corporates asking for sponsorship to do the circumnavigation. He wrote to the Navy, and it was the Navy that accepted his proposal, and the then Defense Minister, Dr. Pranab Mukherjee, sanctioned 6 crores for the project. But it was, this entire circumnavigation was the Admiral's doing. He pushed this project really hard. And even before he could see the first ones completing, he was already thinking of the non-stop circumnavigation. Even before my training for the non-stop circumnavigation began, he was already thinking of sending women around the world. And even before the women's circumnavigation finished, he was already thinking of, sending a solo woman around the world. And each time he would say, I just want to get this done, and then I'm ready to kick the bucket. And he would, do the next project. And then he would say, I just want to get this done, and then I'm ready to kick the bucket. And he would get another project done. It's just him. It's he who's got all these things going for us, for India.
Can you tell us a few things about the family support? And both from your immediate family, from your wife, and then from your mother. Just tell us a few things.
At that time, I was not married. The first circumnavigation, I was not married. In fact, my mother really did not know that I was going to do a non-stop circumnavigation. Admiral Avati visited home, and he told my mother that, your son is going to Brazil, and after that he'll do a non-stop circumnavigation. And she called me and she was howling and crying. She's not afraid of me flying. She's not afraid of me crashing, but she is very afraid of me going to sea at that time. And I said, after almost 1 hour of arguments, I said, it's 4 of us. I'm not going alone to Brazil. And she's like, oh, it's 4 of you, not alone. I said, no. And then she said, okay, but this is the last time you're going to sail. I said, yes. And I sailed to Brazil, and then I called up and said, listen, I've been told to get the boat back, but there's somebody with me. And I sailed to Cape Town. I sailed to Cape Town, and then, before I reached Cape Town, I sent a message to my parents saying that I'm missing home food. Can you send me some banana chips and lungis and stuff like that? And I tried to get them involved in the sailing, and like that, they got involved and they were happy to help. When I came back to India, my mother's like, you will never sail again. And finally, just before the circumnavigation, she was still arguing, don't go, don't go. I said, come back and get married, mom. And that's a condition, She said, fine, you go, but get married once you come back. I said, fine. But the day I started, as soon as I crossed the fairway buoy, I called my mom. She didn't come to see me off. She didn't come to receive me. Called my mom, and she said, just don't worry about us. You have a good trip, and we are completely supporting you. Many years later, after I met with the accident, I was still not able to walk. My mother asked me, I hope you're not going to sail again. And I said, nothing like that. I've not decided. Maybe if I'm physically better, I might think of going sailing. She said, that's exactly what I wanted to hear from you. I don't want you to give up.
Did you ever think that you would not make it back? I'm talking about the first, Parikrama 2, not about the Golden Globe. Did you ever think?
No, I was completely confident that I would finish the expedition.
How do the authorities keep track of whether you have actually crossed all the meridians and whether you've crossed the equator twice and been through all the capes, and what's the tracking mechanism? What was the tracking mechanism earlier and what is it currently? How do you?
In the first Golden Globe race, you had to send your own positions on HF, so there was no tracking that was done. In fact, we have the story of Donald Crowers, who apparently stayed inside the Atlantic but kept sending fake position reports saying that he was sailing around the world. And eventually he couldn't keep up with his own life, so he committed suicide. So in those days, there was no tracking system, but these days they're like dime a dozen. I had an Inmarsat Mini-C, which was sending my position automatically without any intervention every 6 months. I had an AIS, which is actually a ship-to-ship, tracking thing. But the AIS is also tracked by LEOs, which is low Earth orbiting satellites. So there was an Indian organization which was tracking my boat's position through satellites from the AIS transmissions. You have what's called the Fleet Broadband 500, which is which gives you data, internet, and voice telephony. It can be tracked with that also. Plus, I had to send my position report once every 12 hours. So I'm sure they would be probably tallying my position report with the tracking advice that was going from the Inmarsat Mini-C. There are other devices, iridium-based devices, such as the YB3 tracker, which tracks your position continuously. Maybe you can set it up to as low as 1 position per minute. So yeah, there are a lot of complicated tracking devices available now.
Question from Vikas Kapila, and that says your sleeping schedule. I think can you just tell us about your sleeping schedule? How do you sleep?
Yes, the sleep schedule is
you had during which you didn't sleep.
Okay, the sleep schedule is you go for very short naps. You go for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or something. It's called polyphasic sleep. Like on land, people follow what's called monophasic sleep pattern, where they are, on Facebook all night and throughout the day they sleep in office. On land, you follow what's called polyphasic sleep pattern. You sleep like a dog. You sleep for 15, 20 minutes, get a bark and go back to sleep, and get up and eat something and go back to sleep and get up and do something. So that's what you do. You sit somewhere and doze off for 15-20 minutes, open your eyes, check everything's okay, maybe a sail needs to be trimmed, so you trim that sail, go back to sleep. Get up and you realize it's time for breakfast, and you cook something, eat, and then, you know, doze off. You get up and then you, what do you call it, download your weather files and do your weather predictions, and then take a nap, and then get up and fill your log and take a nap. You keep repeating this cycle and you get about 4 to 5 hours of sleep a day. Yeah, that's how it is. And the problem is, once you come back, it took me about 1.5 years for the sleep pattern to come back to normal.
Thanks very much, Abhilash, Tomy, and that is the last of the questions that we had. Fantastic, a lot of demand coming up for listening to your Golden Globe race talk on that. So please prepare and give us a date for that, and we're looking forward to that. Thanks very much, everybody, and please remember to try and register onto the WhatsApp group, and please also you have to register on Zoom now. Our security is dramatically improved. Thanks very much, guys. There's going to be today. I don't think we're going to have any kind of poll. I think fantastic. Have a great weekend.
Bye.